Good day. Scott Campbell, and continuing in the series of Christian Pastor in Quebec. Pleasure to be with you. Excuse me, I just looked in the mirror and thought, wow, bad hair day. It's gotten long, but... So, the first 15 or 16 English videos that I've done, I've kind of been looking over the 30 years of history I've been here, and so it was normal for me to in a sense, compare evangelical Christian beliefs or beliefs of churches that have come out of the Reformation and our practices, how we look at Jesus and the Christian life. I've compared that, of course, to the traditional religion or belief in Quebec, which is Roman Catholicism. And that's been fine, but I want to underline, I'm not here to fight with them. I was just trying to bring out some differences, but I would like now to begin taking more of a more open biblical direction and spending more time in the person of Jesus or just teaching from the Bible that I think is very, very relevant. So today is the 12th of May 2017, and we're 2 days away from Mother's Day, which in Quebec and the rest of North America is really a big day. My father-in-law, when he was alive, worked for Bell Telephone in the United States. And he said that of all the days in the year that long-distance calls were made, it was clear that Mother's Day was the busiest long-distance day. Now, I have no idea if that's the case in Europe or the rest of the world. They may not even have a, quote, Mother's Day. But in North America, the United States and Canada, it's huge. And so I thought, well, I'm going to be preaching 2 times on Sunday about Mother's Day, once in French, once in English in 2 different churches. And so I started again studying, not just mothers, but looking again at God's vision of women. So it could be a mother, could be a wife, could be a grandmother, a girl. But what's his vision of women? And I went back to the very first chapter in Genesis, which of course is fundamental. And there we find that in verse 26, the Trinitarian God says, let's make people in our image. And then he does, and it says he made them male and he made them female. And then he takes those 2 people as a team, as partners, and says to them, now look, I'm blessing you and saying, procreate, fill the earth, okay, with my image, right? Because he's made us in his image. He wants to fill the earth with his image. He wants us to use that God-given creative power that he's put in us and fill the earth. Secondly, he says, and govern it. And he says, procreate, make families, fill the earth. And he says, govern the earth to both of them. This is a team effort. These 2 are full partners, both made in the image of God. Now, it's unfortunate that after the fall in Genesis 3, the wheels come off on this teamwork and this partnership of men and women. But that's not how it's supposed to be. And those of us who are aware of some of what is happening in the world or have visited other countries, studied other religions, it's easy to see that in most religions of the world, women are not treated equally with men, are many times second-class citizens, and then children probably after that, or occasionally a son is treated more importantly than a wife. And even in Christianity, in evangelical Christianity, I find that there's still this tendency to not go back to Genesis 1, which is surely the fundamental teaching on men and women. And of course, when we come to the time of Jesus in the 1st century, looking at the rabbis, the teaching rabbis around him, what interpreters and historians tell us is that they were quite closed to women. They did not want to teach them Torah, the law, instruct them religiously. They wouldn't speak to them in public. Of course, they couldn't touch them. There was, again, a super large division. But Jesus shows up, and he demonstrates through his whole life this equality, this equal value of men and women. He demonstrates it to his mother on a couple of occasions. He demonstrates as well to example, a disciple like Mary of Martha and Mary in Luke 10:38-42. She is sitting at his feet. That's the position of a true disciple who is learning from a rabbi, from a teacher. And he even, in a sense, gently rebukes her sister Martha, who wants to just drag her into the kitchen to help. See, Mary's chosen the good thing. At the resurrection, Jesus appears first to women. And once again, as we study church history and we get information from that time, we discover that women in a court of law for the Jews, their testimony was not equal with that of men. They were considered less reliable. So here is Jesus. One of the most important things he did is rise from the dead. He first appears to women. Talk about a way to undercut your credibility. Now later, of course, he appears to the male disciples. And then we see things played out later in the New Testament. But personally, I'm convinced, whether it be the wonderfulness of Mother's Day, or in my case, what I'm going to preach on is just, the title is Honoring and Celebrating the Women in Our Lives. Because it's not just mothers, it's wives, it's daughters, it's grandmothers, it's single moms, it's single women. All of that part of humanity is such a gift. And anecdotally, when I look back, I can hardly think, and I know that this is not always the case, but every key woman in my life has been such a positive influence, starting with my maternal grandmother, my mother, her sister, my aunt was a super positive influence, and as I said, my mother, my wife, and my daughter. And I, just anecdotally, I'm just so convinced and so overwhelmed with the beauty, everything that goes with what being a woman means. And I don't have a strict, box. I think there's a large spectrum of what femininity and what feminine gender can look like. But I thank God for the women in my life, and so I say to you, would you not honor, celebrate all the women in your life on this Mother's Day, 17th of May, 2017.